We talk about personas as a product. So that's a little bit about, those were the personas themselves. And we treated them as a product. I felt a lot of resonance with the earlier speakers from Disney and Alaska Airlines who were talking about committing to personas, committing to something with the full sort of strength of it as a product and in the process. And we did something similar. We assigned what we call the persona Sarina, Kai Nunez, super senior researcher on my team. And we made the conscious decision to pull her from more active product work, from more immediate, release-related, feature-driving work, to make her the point person for this. What this meant for us is that we had one person who not only program managed the persona effort, but also who was a domain expert, so who could handle all of the questions about how we went about creating personas, why we made the decisions we did, what the factor analysis looked like. It meant that if I or somebody from my leadership team couldn't go meet with a GM, this person could. Centralizing of information made all the difference. We established a release cycle and communication plan. Similar to the slide that you saw earlier this morning that talked about the budget and the release plan, we didn't just say we're going to throw out the personas, see how it's going to work. I mean, we sort of felt that way. But backed up was, hey, we're starting with these personas. We know we have all these other products we have to handle. What's our sequence going to look like? What's staffing going to look like? We've done version 1. When are we going to update them? I talked about them being stable, but when will the next version be? We didn't try and be opportunistic in the sense of like, hey, this is great. We'll do it let's try and get it before this release thing that we just heard about happens. We were super purposeful and said, okay, when's the release cycle? When's the earliest that we have people's attention in a different kind of way? And let's make sure we present at those times. Let's make sure we get into these particular kinds of meetings. We literally made a list of all the people to meet and to do this sort of socializing of the information. We solicited executive buy-in. Sorry. We talked earlier about how important it is to have an executive sponsor. In this case, we had to have 5 or 6 executive sponsors, depending on who was interested. So we did a couple of things which for me, tread along the lines of being a little disingenuous, but also like get stuff done. So we offered to executives in our meetings, like, hey, we'd love your feedback on the kinds of things we're going to ask. Honestly, not a single executive gave us a real question, but they wanted to make sure that they had like put their fingers on it in some sort of way. So it was great. We invited them and their teams to accompany us on customer site visits. Again, none of the executives took us up, in part because they see a lot of customers all the time, I'm sure. But we invited broadly. Just the fact of inviting and making them aware that, hey, we are going to see customer X, Y, and Z as part of this initiative. Do you want to come along? And then the third, which sounds like the stupidest thing ever, I know, but got us so much traction, is we basically said those 5 names I came up with earlier, like pipeline builder, et cetera, we let the executives name them with us. They had naming rights, pretty much. Again, sounds really small, sounds kind of silly, but what it did was not only gave the executives buy-in in a superficial kind of way, but it also allowed them to engage with us in those discussions where we're literally debating half an hour about what a particular persona should be called based on the data we were showing them. It got the executives invested in, yes, this really does represent our users. This really does represent whom I've seen out in my umpteenth visits to customers as actually using our technology. And then sort of according them, like, you get to name them what you want, here are some choices, meant that also egos were attended to, and that also did well for us throughout. Excuse me. We partnered with our data science team. So of one of those silos, our data science team is in a completely different place. It's not within the sort of area in which we operate. And what we did was basically trying to preempt a situation in which we would roll out personas, and then data science would be like, yeah, nice, product usage tells us something completely different, or we don't care about your little stuff out in the corner, we're looking at actual log files. We partnered with them early. We said, hey, here are the kind of questions we should ask. Is there anything we should rephrase so that when we get to the point that we're looking at usage data, that we can, again, in this modular way, click them together more effectively? So we brought them in on the process very early. Often, folks in your data science team have some experience not only with the quantitative analysis part, but also the survey design part. So this was also a crucial part of making this succeed. We hired professional videographers. Seems like a really small thing, but oh my God, did it make such a difference. We tried the first pilot activity with just like some eager UX person who was a self-proclaimed video expert, and we got a whole bunch of video back that was useless. So we made the investment for a videographer. And remember when I talked earlier about the executive buy-in? We made the investment early, but what we did is we asked the product GM, the executive to whom we'd spoken earlier, for money for this. So the fact that we'd done that buy-in work early meant that we had this sort of extra goodwill to get resources for that.